This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined today by Andrew Crapuchettes, founder and CEO of Red Balloon. This is a company you're going to want to learn a lot about. Are you somebody who's in charge of a company and you're trying to find the right kind of help? Are you somebody who's looking for a job, who is really a conservative, a Christian, somebody who's moderate, and you're a little bit nervous because all these job descriptions require you to become activists and to basically show your social justice tattoos before you can get in the door? You're going to love this guest of mine. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, and I'm so glad to be here. Love your show. Love everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. And tell us, in your words, what Red Balloon is all about.
Yeah, so Red Balloon really is only about a year and a half old business, and it came from the fact that I used to run a fairly large technology company. My board decided I was a little too conservative and Christian for their liking, so I found myself delightfully unemployed, and I thought, well, if that happened to me, it's probably going to happen to a lot of other Americans. And so I started hearing stories of people being canceled from their job and their ability to support their family, to feed their kids, to pay their mortgage. And I thought there's got to be a lot of businesses out there that would actually like to hire people who believe that the Constitution still matters, and that if you show up to work and work really hard, that you can be a blessing to your employer, and that we could live in a country where a meritocracy is still intact. So that's why we started redballoon.work. As an opportunity to bring those two groups of people together, job seekers who are eager to work hard and not have to go through DEI training or CRT training or put their pronouns on everything, but instead just show up and do their job, and employers who really just want to hire people who show up and work and aren't a snowflake in the HR department that is whining about every little thing. And so that's redballoon.work. It started about a year and a half ago. So that was about 6 months after I ended up leaving my other company. And it turns out that there's a lot of demand for freedom today. So we have, in this small amount of time, accumulated over 3,000 employers and over 1 million job seekers who have been looking for opportunities in the workplace where they can be free. And it is a super fun business to run. I've run a lot of businesses over the years, but this is the only one where I get these unsolicited thank you notes from perfect strangers, whether it's the business or the job seeker, just saying, I didn't realize how important it was to be free at work. It really just had a huge impact on my life. So that's what we've been pushing on and actually having a lot of fun winning at.
Well, I just met you, and I got to say thank you for doing this. I run a company here where we are a Christian school. We're constantly trying to find teachers who haven't gotten their degrees from big university departments of education, where they've imbibed all this CRT and all this garbage. So we will be using you in the future, no doubt about it. And I know there's an interesting story, but behind the title, the name Red Balloon, what is that?
Yeah, so if you've ever been on a hot air balloon, it's a little bit terrifying and a lot bit fun, which is actually what it looks like to look for a job. And so we thought, if you're on a balloon, it's kind of this floating sensation. You don't have a lot of control, and you're kind of at the whims of the wind. And the landing is usually pretty rough. And so that's actually what it feels like to look for a job, because I've done that before, and I've hired a lot of people over the years. And then red, clearly people are moving to red states. They're moving to red businesses. They're moving to red parts of blue states. They're going where they can find freedom. And we're conservatives. We don't actually like to move. We don't actually like to change. We like to conserve, right? But we're seeing this great sort that's happening all over the country. We're seeing people move. So redballoon.work, and .work because .com sounded way too much like communism to me, and we're not into communism. We're into work, because actually work is good for your soul. Going through a hard day of work is actually gratifying. It is what God has called us to do. And so redballoon.work is hopefully captures all of those things. Job searching is hard. People are looking for freedom, and they want to work. They don't want communism. So there you go, redballoon.work. Probably put more thought into it than we needed to, but it's kind of fun.
You cannot overthink conservatism when you see the goofiness that's going on around in our culture. We have a short promo video of yours we'd like to show, because I think this, just like your concise summary nailed it, I think this promo nails it as well. Play that, Mike.
Looking for a job isn't easy. It used to be that you could apply at a big name tech company and build a great career for yourself. But times have changed. Many of these companies have gone full woke. And if you aren't the right gender, ethnicity, you don't use pronouns, or if you're not an activist for the preferred cause, then good luck. Why would you risk your career on that? At Red Balloon, we're connecting good employees with top quality companies that value you for your skills and your work ethic, not your social activism score. Employers who post jobs on Red Balloon are focused on creating an enjoyable and productive work culture, free from divisive woke mandates. So if you want to find a serious career path without the nonsense, come to Red Balloon and post your resume today. Because you shouldn't have to choose between your job and your values. That's redballoon.work, where you can find your future.
This has got to be so exciting to so many people who just dread going to job interviews and to trying to find companies that would at least tolerate their worldview. I mean, what you're doing is put together people who want these kinds of employees with people who want to be there. You must have really big success stories. Can you share one or two with us?
Oh, absolutely. I was talking to an employer recently, and they said, they had spent thousands of dollars on Indeed. They were trying to find people, and they got hundreds of applicants, but none of them were worth talking to because many of them were the pink hairs that aren't going to show up and do the good work. And then they came to redballoon.work, and they're like, and everybody I talked to is grateful for the opportunity to work. They are striving for an America where a meritocracy is still in place and where people are valued based on the skills that they have, not on their skin color. And over and over again, we hear these from these employers. And a lot of us, I know this was the case for me, a lot of us don't realize how toxic some of this woke workplace is today. I talked to a lady at Deloitte who was told that, I wish all those unvaccinated people would go to an island and die together. This is after her DEI training. Or a lady at Microsoft, and this one really is just terrible. She had an American flag for her team's background, and she was told by HR that is inappropriate. It is triggering to some of our employees because it's a sign of white supremacy. And so you may not have an American flag of all things on your team's background. So we hear these stories all the time, and then I get letters from people. I had a lady from Dallas who wrote me and just said, hey, I want you to know that you have saved my marriage because my husband has worked for a company for 10 years where they hated his worldview. They didn't allow him to be free. He wasn't allowed to live his values out loud. And then he found a new job through redballoon.work. And she said, it's not the compensation, although the compensation was strong. It's not even the work, although he loves the work. It's that the fact that he's able to be free at work. She says, you've saved our marriage because when you're free at work, you have the opportunity to be free at home, to be free in your community, in your church, and at the polls. And so this is the thank you notes that we get in where these job seekers, they're like, it really has changed the trajectory of my family to live somewhere where I'm free. And so that's my encouragement to a lot of Americans is, look, if we do something, if we stand up and do something different and leave that woke job where you're actually making more money for that company than they're paying you, that's actually how it works, then you're going to put your family on a different trajectory because you're going to be free. And you can't help but bring that stuff home. When you're being put through DEI training and CRT training and all that stuff, it's really just going to have an impact on the way that you see the rest of the world. So it really is an important thing we're doing. The other thing that's been kind of fun is we've had organizations like Louder with Crowder or Children's Health Defense or Strive Financial or Hillsdale College come to us and say, you know what, is there any way for you actually to filter our resumes, to do a first interview for us to make sure that everyone coming in the door is a cultural fit? And so we've kind of taken on the hiring process for a lot of these employers, and just seeing the look on their face of the rest that comes from knowing that someone's taking care of that. Because if you don't hire very often, the interview process is actually terrifying. What are you going to say that's maybe going to get you a lawsuit? And so that's where Red Balloon, we've really built out our team, and we now have the ability to actually filter resumes and, again, do that first cultural interview to make sure that by the time you're talking to the person, you know they're a great culture fit, they're a great skill fit, and they're going to be additive to your culture and to your team. And that's just been also really fun to see employers thrive because they have the right people.
And as you pointed out, it's also one layer of distance between you and a lawsuit, right? I mean, because a lot of employers want to ask these kinds of questions, but they are terrified of being singled out. And that gives rise to my second question for you. It's got to be, given in this cutthroat environment we live in, where if you're not woke, you're going to be attacked from 18 different sides. You know that the IRS is looking at you much more than woke businesses. Aren't these employers a little nervous about coming with you? I assume that there's no list out there of all your businesses so anybody could see them. How do you handle that aspect where there are some companies who might want to use you, but then also I noticed that you've been featured in the New York Times. After you answer that question, I'd like you to explain what that was like and how did they review you, but go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a couple different options we have for employers. We do have anonymous balloons. So if you would like to post jobs and not have your logo out there, and we've had a couple dozen businesses do that where they're just concerned about the doxing, whether it's the IRS, whether it's the FBI or one of those organizations doing something to them because they've aligned themselves with a conservative organization. I totally get that. I understand. That being said, one of our employers, Gavin DeBecker and Associates, I was talking to Gavin and he says, most of my guys that work for me are excited about Red Balloon, and most of, guys and gals that work for him, and most of my customers would not be okay with it. And I said, well, Gavin, we can do anonymous balloon. And those who don't know, Gavin DeBecker and Associates is one of the top premier private security companies in the world. He takes care of people like Joe Rogan and other billionaires, Jeff Bezos. And he says, and most of his customers who are movie stars and billionaires would think he was crazy to align with Red Balloon. I said, well, we can do anonymous balloon. He says, I kind of think that this is the moment because there are more people in America, there are more conservatives than there are people who are pushing this leftist worldview. And if we all just try and keep our head down, at some point, they're going to come for us. And so he's like, no, I would like to put my job postings out there. I would like people to know that I am aligned with freedom because that's what made America great in the first place. And we shouldn't be afraid of that anymore. And so the vast majority of our employers are happy to have their logo on Red Balloon. And a lot of these are small businesses who are just striving to serve their customers, to bless their employees, and to make America what it was in the past, where it was one of the greatest economic superpowers and still is. But I think that we've got some ground to take back there. And if you're an employer, I would encourage you. We just did an interesting study on the cost of a bad hire. And generally that is a cost of a bad hire, which happens to be a woke hire. And that can cost you between $15,000 and $21,000 for one bad hire. And obviously multiply that by lots of bad hires, and it can take down your business. And so while there is this kind of nerve-wracking moment, am I going to get in a lawsuit? Am I going to get in trouble? We have not had any problems on that front. We have a labor lawyer on staff. So our whole interview process is completely dialed in, and we're not concerned about that for our employers. But if you get a bad hire within your four walls, the cost of that is significant. And so I would encourage employers, we're in a moment when aligning with Red Balloon is not as dangerous as you think, because this is the mainstream. Most Americans would like to get back to a spot where we can just be free. We can hire the people we want. We can work hard, and we can, make some money and make some profit. That's the point of running a business. So yeah, there you go. On your second question, yeah, I have had a couple of hit pieces. I'll say the biggest hit piece on Red Balloon was actually Wired magazine. Bless their hearts. And it's kind of funny because a lot of that mainstream media is dying in a lot of ways because people don't trust them anymore. They look to shows like yours where they can actually hear the truth. Wired magazine, I think they said, this joke of a company is run by a CEO with an unfortunately named CEO. So they made it very personal. They attacked me, and I just laugh it off because I get to go home to my family. We are on a technology stack that would make it extremely difficult for people to cancel us, like happened to Parler. And so, we're in a culture war, and we can do it joyfully. We don't have to do it in the shrill way that a lot of people on the left do, but it is a great opportunity. We're in America, and every person in a story who actually goes and does something brave is usually the hero of that story. And so we need more Americans who are ready to be heroes.
Yeah, no, I think you are very articulate about this. You're not just a company that's helping people. You're a company that's actually fighting back against the system in the sense that you are proud of what you're doing. This is a way, like that the security team said to you, we want to be out now. We don't want to hide in the proverbial closet. Things are changing now, and we're never going to get past this woke, crazy virus unless the majority of us who don't believe that do stand up. So I do have to ask you though, what did the New York Times, how'd they handle you?
A lot of these people actually, I've been on CNN radio. Part of it is the last company I ran was the nation's leading labor market data company. And so I've been studying the labor market and studying the implications of the labor market for a long time. And so honestly, they don't know what to do with me because I've run large tech companies. And I'm not saying that I'm that I'm anti-vax. I'm pro-freedom, right? I'm not anti-woke, I'm pro-freedom, because that's what made America great in the first place. And so I remember I did a Forbes podcast. She didn't believe that there was a parallel economy, but it turns out that we have lots of information about the parallel economy. And when I'm talking to employers, and I was talking to a small construction company in Texas or an auto shop in Idaho who were not allowed to post jobs on Indeed.com because they described themselves as either God-fearing or freedom-loving. So those people are being told they're not allowed to be part of the mainstream economy. They need to go find their own economy. And that's where, of course, they came over to Red Balloon and have been able to fill positions there. But a lot of the people in the media are kind of incredulous that that Americans would want to stand up and be free. And so it's been a really fun adventure. I've had hundreds of media interviews over the last year just talking about freedom and the job market. And it's an opportunity to speak the truth and not worry about it, because what's the worst that they can do to me?
Have you ever had a situation, I call it the reverse gay birthday cake kind of scenario, where you have progressives trying to pass as conservatives in order to get into the system with you, or even maybe to get a job with a conservative group that they could then turn around accuse of being discriminatory to them?
Right.
Has any of that stuff or any major doxing like that happened?
Yeah, it has not. Some of our customers have had that happen to them, and that's why they turned to redballoon.work. Where they actually had people actively come in trying to destroy their business because they were pro-freedom, pro-America businesses. Redballoon.work, we've built a very proprietary hiring system and interview system to avoid those kind of pitfalls. And again, as I said, we have a labor lawyer on staff because we live in a very litigious society where people are constantly looking for a lawsuit. But you'd be surprised. We're actually as long as you actually follow the laws, there's a lot that you can do to avoid getting those hires inside your four walls. And we've had a number of people who have complained. But again, we have more protection than we think, but conservatives, we're a live and let live crowd. We like to just keep our head down and not worry about it. And in fact, we came out with the Employee Bill of Rights and Responsibilities, written by our own Laura the Labor Lawyer, which is our in-house labor lawyer. So Laura the Labor Lawyer helped put together the Employee Bill of Rights and Responsibilities. And what's been surprising to a lot of conservatives is how many rights they have, and they have not been taken advantage of in the workplace. There's quite a few things that we can do, but we're all just, want to be careful. And the problem is we've been so careful that we've given up a lot of ground to the left. So no, we haven't had any problems, and our employers have been thrilled with the ability to hire people who are like-minded, values-aligned candidates without having to worry about all that.
It's remarkable. Now, do you have a series of questions or boxes to tick? Is there a way you measure, or a routine way of questions that you ask people who come to you, or when you advertise this, or is every individual an individual? And related to that, what is the number one reason that people say they come to you? Is it because of the wokeness? Is it because of their Christianity? What is the thing that grabs most people?
Yeah. So a lot of great questions there. And we have about 1,000 job seekers a week who are filling out profiles and putting resumes on redballoon.work. So we are growing by leaps and bounds. Look, when you're asking questions of someone in an interview, there's a lot of things you can do when you're talking about your own company. And so what we do when we work with a new company is we understand what their culture is. We turn that culture into a series of statements about the company, and open-ended questions of the candidate. So there's interesting things that you can do when you're not saying, hey, I'm looking for someone of a certain age or religion or political background. Those things are illegal. But what you can do is you can describe your business almost any way you want, and you can then ask very open-ended questions about the business and about the way that you think about that culture. So we have actually a whole training that we put a lot of our employers through if they want to do their own hiring and interviewing to make sure they avoid some of those pitfalls, avoid the bad hire, and also avoid the lawsuit. So there's a whole process and a system that we've kind of built over the last year, and it's working amazingly.
I love your motto, find a job that respects your values. And I assume if there's anybody out there who thinks this is great, but they want more information, I'm sure they can get in touch with you. How would they be able to reach you if they wanted more information?
Yeah, so you can go to redballoon.work. Remember, it's not .com, redballoon.work. Go there. We have a blog. We have a lot of content for you. We have a newsletter. You can download an employee bill of rights and responsibilities and then share it with your friends and family. You can look for jobs that are on there. If you're an employer, you can start posting your jobs almost right away. And if you want us to take over that hiring process for you and get only great hires and avoid lawsuits, we'd love to hear about that. I'll even be so bold as to give you my email address, which is andrew@redballoon.work. And I would love to hear from you. We have an opportunity in America today where there are more people on the right who are conservatives just trying to keep their head down. I was talking to an employer who has 1,000 employees, and they're like, man, but there's 3 activists that we're really struggling with. I'm like, really? 3 out of 1,000 employees? Why don't you get rid of them? And so I said, I think that the month of June is coming out conservative month. And so let's all come out conservative, live our values out loud, because I think when all of us are courageous and brave, we're going to give courage and bravery to other people around us. So yes, come to redballoon.work. Great information. My email is andrew@redballoon.work. You can follow us on all the social media platforms @redballoonwork. And we would love to have you join this movement because freedom in the workplace is a really strategic and important part of how we're going to save America.
Man, I can tell you this, what you've come up with would have been just a home run in the Shark Tank. I can't imagine that people would have been salivating over this. Wonderful idea, great spirit too, a social spirit that you have. All of this is wonderful. I'm so glad to have had this interview to be able to talk to you and learn more about it. I guarantee you we will be using you in the future. Andrew Crapuchettes, the founder and CEO of Red Balloon. You've got to go check this out. The motto is, again, find a job that respects your values. And redballoon.work. Please check this organization out very carefully because this could be a changing force, a transformation force in the workplace. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today.